The finance minister started her speech by highlighting that we are living through these unprecedented times and that the pandemic has induced a deep contraction in the economy. And she noted that these extraordinary times call for extraordinary action, and therefore our government has presented us this budget, which is being billed as the budget of the century, right? A once in 100-year budget. So let's talk about whether this budget warrants this title. First, the focus on health was expected and warranted, especially the outlays for vaccinations, which are needed to reestablish a sense of normalcy for you, for me, for the economy. But second, the budget focuses on infrastructure, both in terms of allocations and strategies for disinvestment to monetize existing assets. All of this, of course, is in service of reinvigorating growth. Some, in fact, many are calling this budget a growth budget. And that may well be, but in my view, this budget does not focus on directly on one of the most urgent and pressing challenges of our time, that is jobs. For years now, there has been a discussion of jobless growth in India. The number of jobs created per unit of growth that economists call the employment elasticity of growth is very low. And the idea that if we generate growth and the jobs will come has proven to be untrue time and time again. So I have argued, as have many others, that the focus needs to be on job creation first, and that will drive growth, as opposed to the focus being on broad-based growth that doesn't actually necessarily lead to job creation. So let me take you through some of the numbers even before the pandemic. Before the pandemic, our unemployment rate had ticked up to over 6% already. By December 2020, it had risen to 9%. Labor force participation as a whole was around 50% before the pandemic. That is fewer than 1 out of every 2 people were actually participating in the labor force even before the pandemic. Now, according to data from the Center for Monitoring the Indian Economy, CMIE, it was down to 40% again as of December 2020. And this number is abysmally low for women. So as of December 2020, less than 1 in 10 women are in the labor force. Let's just pause and take that figure in. Fewer than 1 in 10 women are in the labor force. More than 1 out of every 4 young person, youth, that is those between the ages of 15 to 29, are unemployed. And many of our workers are in jobs that are low productivity and low wage. So what we really needed at this time was a rozgaar budget, a jobs budget. And unfortunately, in this respect, this budget falls short. So let me explain why. So some will argue, and I accept, that infrastructure is one of the best ways to create direct jobs. But the problem with the infrastructure priorities articulated in this budget, as my colleague Partho Mukhopadhyay has also said, is that this budget focuses on projects where money will be spent on things like acquisition of land. And so the benefits in the near term will accrue to a few as opposed to the many. And the projects themselves will take several months, if not years, to get going and to create the large number of jobs that we need now. This kind of infrastructure does not put money in the pockets of people that need it now, and we need to boost consumption and economic demand, and the existing budget and the allocations do not do that. The second point I wanted to make with respect to infrastructure is that it is true that even within the infrastructure allocation, the government is trying to reinvigorate our textile sector by creating more industrial parks and revisiting some of our trade norms. This focus on capital-intensive sectors like textiles is welcome. But we need the money in the pockets of people now to spur demand. And these industrial parks will take a long time to get going. So Had this focus been, this emphasis on textiles come in addition to other allocations that put money in the pockets of people right away to spur demand right away, it would have been commendable. But this alone is not enough. What we should have done by way of infrastructure, as Dr. Mukhopadhyay has noted, is that we should have created he called this a Maha maintenance mission, which I completely agree with, which is where we are creating employment quickly through maintaining and fixing up existing infrastructure. And this not only creates employment, but also improves the quality of our existing assets. This would have balanced a focus on the ease of doing business with raising living standards by not only creating lots of maintenance jobs, but also creating an ease of living for others that will then use this infrastructure. In terms of other allocations on jobs, the budget outlay for the Mahatma Gandhi Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, MNREGA, is being raised to 73,000 crore relative to 61,500 crore that was allocated last year. And like last year, we expect that it will ultimately be raised to over 100,000 crores. There is a larger allocation for the National Livelihood Mission, Ajivika, from 10,000 crore to just under 14,500 crore in this budget. But other allocations for jobs and skills development have actually gone down. The finance minister mentioned 3,000 crores being allocated for apprenticeships. I didn't quite find that. But in any case, I think the bigger problem with apprenticeships is that we aren't even able to spend, and certainly not spend well, what has already been allocated. And so there's a real problem with the way our skills training ecosystem and apprenticeship ecosystem is designed. I do believe that apprenticeships deserve more attention. They are the wave that, of the future. It is what we should be pushing, but implementation is as important. So even what we've allocated in the past has not been spent, and certainly not spent well. And so we need to look at that much, much more closely. So that's what the budget focused on. Now, in terms of what the budget glossed over, the budget speech glossed over, there was a mention of gig workers and migrant workers. But it's important to note that if we take workers that are in the informal employment, that number is about 70%. So 70%, upwards of 70% of all those working are in informal employment. They are beyond the purview of labor regulations, of social security, and we need to focus on ensuring that not only are we addressing the jobs issue in terms of quantity, but the quality of work. And the upwards of 70% that are in informal employment are working in low productivity, low wage sectors, and are not being provided any benefits that allows the economy to harness their productive potential in addition to protecting their own welfare. And so what we needed was a concerted effort to consolidate the over 600 social protection schemes that we have, to add meat to the labor codes. The finance minister spoke of minimum wages, but we still don't know. The rules don't specify how often the floor wage and the minimum wage will be revised and what the formula for calculating it is actually going to be. We need to ensure that our labor codes, that our social protection policies actually provide workers with the protections that they need so that we can harness their productive potential. And certainly this budget does not do that. And so again, I end this by saying that what we really needed was a jobs budget, and unfortunately, we didn't get the rozgaar budget that we were hoping to see. And it has to be one of the most pressing priorities of our economy and of our people right now.